There we are.
Oh, there we go.
And we're on. Is
Do we
everyone
want to
being
start?
silent now?
Yeah, do we want to start by just taking each other through the brief? I'm happy to go first if you like.
Love it.
So my
do it.
idea was behind financial literacy in PNG, which has a lot of issues such as remote rural communities. There's lack of financial infrastructure, details of the demographics that are left out of financials. So there was an assumption of requirements that you could take an Australian product, such as a credit card, and make it relevant in PNG, which was not the case. Certainly, the demo, there's a couple of levels to this. There's the new country, there's the emerging economy, there's a lack of infrastructure, there's the demographics that are coming in which will buy those things, there's old habits which are based on bartering. So there's I have a fish and I want the chicken and I'll swap, but this idea that I just have a bit of plastic is a little bit alien to me. There's long walks to get to that bank. And then when you're there, lots of people are there. There's also a lot of robbery in. So do you actually really want to carry the cash around? So my idea was really to look at how telcos and banks can support each other. And so hopefully that makes it a safer transaction for people. They're not carrying cash. They can access it via their mobile phones within the rural environment and not have to make long treks to the bank. So that's the basis of and they're my key themes that I was researching. Who wants to go next?
Sorry, what's the subscription model, Bernie?
Oh, so subscription model is so demographic. So at the moment, why are fees on your credit card annual? Well, what we're looking at is things that are coming through like Netflix, like Spotify, which have a subscription model. So what would we have? So there's also, coupled with that, there's a religious theme. So in Islam, you're not allowed to charge interest. So they charge a fee or an interest, yeah. So they have a fee. The subscription model is more like your Netflix, more like your Spotify, as I said. That's much more popular with millennials. I'm sure you guys could tell me more about that than I can tell you about that. I'm not sure what I'm telling you, but it's more acceptable. So it's rejection of big banks too, and buy now, pay later. So you can see in one of those orange squares there, there's the buy now, pay later, which is massive. And I did some work for Afterpay at one stage, and their biggest demographic is the 25 to 35-year-old female.
Yeah, it is.
Afterpay. Yeah. So it's, Afterpay, all it is lay-by, done quarterly.
Yeah.
But due to that demographic in particular coming through the GFC at a really critical time, not the Geelong Football Club, but the global financial crisis, they had, so they've looked away from banks which are traditionally much more rigid than, and don't go, and you don't have to go through the credit score to actually have a buy now, pay later, like Klarna or Afterpay, and there's several others too. Yeah, good question.
Love it.
So you also saw a trend towards moving away from the physical credit card towards the electronic banking.
Yeah, that's right. So physical credit card, merchant controls that infrastructure doesn't exist very much in rural parts of PNG. What you find is that there's a real push to have your mobile phone being your complete banking friend, or your bank in your pocket. So there's still parts of PNG which don't have any mobile coverage or very poor coverage. So you're still seeing a lot of buttering, a lot of people walking long distances to the banks. As I said before, there's a lot of robbery. So what you see in New Guinea is that people will walk around with a very large machete in their pocket just to chop through there, because the jungle grows really quickly, and they have slingshots to shoot down the bird of paradise and put the feathers in their hair and things like that. So if they kind of see someone with a big wallet of money, I've been to PNG a couple of times, by the way, so that's actually first-hand knowledge. So there's it's quite a high degree of robbery. They rank 42 in the world for one-on-one robberies, which is quite high,
Oh, wow.
considering their demographic and considering the actual report. So the reporting is that they know that 1 in 10 get actually reported.
Yeah.
And they're
wow.
second in the world. Yes, that's a high number.
So what surprised you the most of your ethnography? Oh,
what a good question. I think the disparity between rural and the two different communities, the ones in the rural were very, very, almost, sort of almost primal, and then the cities are quite, they've got highly educated people, they've got sort of very, well articulated sort of education processes once you're in there. So I think it was probably the disparity.
Cool.
That was
Thank you.
that was the that at least was what my research showed.
Nice.
So over to you guys. Who wants to go next?
I'm happy to. So something that I was looking at was obviously millennial women, and one of the key themes that I was looking at was the influence of social media on spending habits and how that's kind of linked into why people apply for credit cards. I think obviously a long time ago when we didn't have social media, it wasn't so easy to see what everybody else was doing, where they were going out for lunch, for dinner, what they were wearing. I think there wasn't as much pressure specifically on that group to be spending, I guess, over and above their means. And that kind of tied into a lot of the research I did on just how many people end up either not being able to pay the interest off on their credit cards, whether it's from not understanding when they sign up to their first credit card. I know from firsthand experience that that's what I did when I got my first credit card. And that also kind of leads into another thing, which is the fact that it's really easy to apply for a credit card and there's not really any process whereby you have to show that you really do understand the financial obligation that you are making. So I think that as a part of a solution to that, it would be actually refining that process, and rather than the banks just giving people credit cards, actually running them through what that obligation is and tailoring it specifically to people's spending. Like, for example, if someone's applying to get a credit card purely to spend over and above their means because they've been influenced by social media or whatever, that there's kind of like a stoppage or at least a limited credit card that you can access for a certain period of time.
Are you solving your own problems right now, Alex?
Yeah, I was going to say, we're diving into solution mode right now.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll pull it back a little bit, but it's basically, for me, I think social pressures, wanting stability or backup options, which is again what I've read a lot about. People just want to feel like, if they miss their pay 1 week or their pay comes through late, which does happen a lot with, internet and stuff going down, that they're going to be able to afford to cover their rent, or they're going to be able to buy the food that they need, things like that, especially if you're living in a paycheck to paycheck situation. Another theme I had, it's all quite negative and doom and gloom, but that was kind of most of the research that I did, is the lack of empathy from companies, which builds up like that feeling of shame and I guess a negative connection with banks that I think a lot of people have, because they feel like they're just another number that's really contributing, in the same way that a lot of people are. And then I've also put there as well the influence of COVID and its impacts on financial stability, because I think for a lot of people that's been something that has been quite stressful, and particularly with all of the new strains that keep coming out, it's definitely something that we're living with even still now. So that was another kind of key theme that I looked at. And that's pretty much it.
I've got
a little bit.
What surprised you the most? What surprised you the most in your interviews?
To be honest, I think the social media part, because I'm not really geared that way to be that bothered by, what everybody else is doing. But I found through that process that a lot of people really do feel quite, I guess, insecure, from the set that I was interviewing anyway, about if they don't have, enough of what everybody else has. And then when I then started looking through Instagram through that little discovery page, and you start to see, especially actually people like reality stars and everything like that, like you can tell whenever they're posting, it's just like a constant need to, I guess, prove themselves and their status. And a lot of the time now, I think a lot of things that have come out from that is that most of the time, all of this product that everybody is getting is actually sponsored anyway. So they're not even, everyone's kind of like grappling to this unattainable level of like perceived wealth, which is actually kind of all a bit of an illusion. So I think that was probably one of the most surprising things for me.
Interesting.
I'm really glad you looked into that point, Alex, because so many times I'm on Instagram and I'm like, I know this person does not make as much money as me, and I don't even have the clothes they're wearing. I don't even have the things they're having. And it all makes sense. They obviously all just have credit cards. And just themselves.
That's how they're paying for everything.
Yeah. Like people that get a credit card to go on an overseas holiday, and then they just spend it all and they just go stuff it, like I'll deal with it when I get back. And they do it all for this process of just wanting to be able to, I guess, spend above their means. And I think it puts a lot of stress on a lot of other people who feel like maybe they're not, doing well enough for themselves. And there's a whole, I think, psychology tied into that too, about how people feel, isolated if they're not really doing what, the rest of their group is doing, which is also quite interesting.
Does that deal with your sort of that assumption of success?
Yeah, I think so. Because it's like so many people, well, a lot of people look at success as just having a job that pays a lot of money, especially as you start to, get on your way with your career and everything. It's kind of like the main thing that's just sort of deafening.
It's the superficial success, isn't it? It's like the visual part of I'm showing you how well I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly right.
Sorry, I just thought I'd start taking a note of some of the things that we're
I like it.
calling out here.
Did you just say sorry, Adri?
I'm just going to do this. I've decided that I'm going to do this, and I hope that's okay with
sorry,
everyone.
Sir?
Sorry, sir.
Sorry, sir. That was really good, Alex. Thanks for sharing. That was great.
Yeah, all good.
Who wants to go next? Bridge, Bianca, Adri?
I'll go next. Go for it. Cool with everyone. So I interviewed 3 females and female millennials, and the most common theme, and the one I found most shocking, or that surprised me, was they all brought up their parents and their family. And it was just this constant theme of, my parents said I should never get a credit card, you should use your own money, credit isn't real, you'll get into debt, and they really drove this fear into them when they were younger. But 2 out of 3 of them did have credit cards, and the third one, who brought up her parents the most, she has actually just bought a property with her partner, and now that she's bought a property, her parents have changed their rhetoric around, drilling that thing into her of not getting a credit card. Now it's like, oh, well, you should get a credit card now. So I just found that really interesting. But even when she was describing this to me, she was toing and froing back and forth. Yeah, I'll get one, but yeah, it's still kind of scary. But no, I should get it because I'm responsible enough now because I have a house. So that was something like really surprising to me, that they all did bring up their family. But then along with the family stuff, they felt a lot of shame that they had gotten a credit card, and when their parents found out, there was a bit of like, why would you do that? Particularly one girl, she was also looking to buy her first apartment, and the bank, she had an open credit card account, she had $0 owing on it. She had an $86,000 HECS debt. The bank doesn't care about the HECS. They cared about that $3,000 credit card account that was open with $0 owing. And they nearly said, we're not going to give you this loan, and her parents were like, why do you have a credit card, da 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 da. And then she felt really ashamed, she got really upset. So that was pretty bad. And then the second thing is a lot of them brought up the financial literacy stuff that we're talking about is like there's just a bit of uneducation